Okay, so everyone has an action item. When we began to plan this 3 months ago, we didn't think that we were going to have legislators come and talk about a specific bill. So your action item, and Linda Stewart just sort of laid down the gauntlet, is to go and contact your legislator and express support about these bills. So if you need to find out who your legislator is, you can go to the League of Women Voters website at thefloridavoter.org, find out who your legislator is, and reach out to them specifically about these bills. But that's exciting. There's something tangible to talk about today. Just quickly, before Charles Lee comes and speaks to us, I wanted to make special mention of the organizers from the three organizations that really put this together. First is Chuck O'Neill with the League of Women Voters. Chuck? Wherever Chuck is, thank you. He's in the far back there. Chuck, thanks for the time and effort that you've put into this. Ryan Smart with the Florida Conservation Coalition. Thank you very much for your efforts, Ryan. And Dee Dee Sharp, the president of the Friends of the Wekiva River, who is also around here somewhere. Thank you, Dee Dee. Our last speaker in this morning's session is Charles Lee. Charles is the Director of Advocacy for Audubon, Florida, where he leads Audubon's Central Florida Ecosystems Program. He has 40 years of experience representing Audubon in Florida on a wide variety of statewide, regional, and local issues. He's been appointed to major commissions by various governors and other public officials, and serves on the Century Commission for Sustainable Florida, the Wekiva River Basin Commission, and the Wekiva River System Advisory Board. Charles has played a key role in attaining legal protections for the Wekiva ecosystem and continues to be one of its greatest advocates. For me and those of you who have been in Central Florida for a long time, I've known Charles the entire time I've been here, and from my perspective, there's probably no more effective or tireless advocate for conservation in Central Florida, and we're pleased that he's here to give us his thoughts today. Charles.
Thank you, Jay. You know, I think many of us, if not most of us, know the metrics of the decline of Wekiva Springs by virtue of the numbers we've heard. You know, we know that this spring has had 5 incidents since the year 2000, when its flow fell to 150 cubic feet per second. That's unprecedented in 80 years of history in the measurement of the spring flow, and all of those low points have happened in the last decade and 3 years. We also know that in the time since the mid-1960s, the withdrawal of water from the aquifer has grown from around 60 million gallons a day to over 300 million gallons a day in the Central Florida area. And we know that the nitrates that are now flowing out of the spring are flowing out at 400% of what they need to be in order for the spring to be saved. But what's real about that? How do you turn those abstractions into terms that people understand? It happened for me the other day when I was sitting in a meeting, and a gentleman who's a prominent engineer and public official here in Orlando indicated toward the close of the meeting that he had just been on the Wekiva River with his family for the first time in about 5 years. And that he was amazed that in the 5-year period from the time he had been there before and now, all of the sand patches in the river and the places where he could see the contrast between the green eelgrass and the sand patches were gone, and were now replaced by this gray-green ilk of what is brought into the system by too much nitrates. And I think that in that 5-year window, to understand that loss is the realization of what's happening to the Wekiva River. And the message I want to leave for you here today is that it is time to stop studying this problem. It is time for the wheels of government that spend our tax dollars to stop grinding out one study after another that generally says the same thing. It is time to move from study into action. And I'd like to suggest a single focal point today for action, because I truly believe that this single focal point consummates a description of the most basic problem and the most serious problem that faces the springs, both in terms of the decline of its flow and in terms of the terrible escalation of nitrates that is causing the exotic aquatic weeds to take over and to blot out the pristine character of the spring. And this is something where, you remember that old saying, perhaps overused from the 60s, we have met the problem and he is us, it is us, the Pogo statement. This is where it could not be more true. And I'd like to introduce you to what I firmly believe is the single greatest factor that is killing Wekiva Springs and our other springs in Florida. And I've got it right here in this bag. Here it is. Between 50 and 60% of the water that flows through every water meter in Central Florida goes to water this stuff. Most of the nitrates that are ending up in Wekiva Springs are from fertilizer that is applied to this stuff. Septic tanks and other sources account for a significant amount, but the single bad actor in our urbanizing areas around the spring that is introducing nitrates to the spring is the care and feeding of this. Did you know this is Florida's biggest crop? There are more millions of acres of this material growing as a crop in Florida than any other plant crop material. And what do we do with the product of growing this crop? Well, in a good part of the year, every week or two, we mow it and we bag it up and we haul millions of tons of this to the landfill to get rid of it. It is not a sustainable crop. So what can each of us do who live in the urban area around Orlando? We can stop growing this stuff. We can get on the phone to True Green Kimlon and Massey Services and the other vendors that we pay, in some cases, thousands of dollars a year per home, and say, we're canceling our contract. We're not growing this stuff anymore. We're not pouring the water on the land that is going to filter those nitrates back into Wekiva Springs. Look below you at your feet. That is a natural Florida lawn. It is green a good part of the year. It doesn't need fertilizer. It doesn't need watering. It doesn't need thousands of dollars a year to some lawn service company to keep it up in your house. And if everybody were to simply switch to what you see beneath your feet, a native Florida lawn, a very substantial part of the nutrients and a very substantial part of the predatory extraction of water from the aquifer that is depriving the springs of its flow would be remedied. The remedy is not going to happen overnight. But courtesy of law that passed in 2009, homeowners associations can no longer in Florida force you to grow this stuff anymore. No matter what's in your homeowners association bylaws and rules, you're exempt because the legislature says homeowners associations can't force you to do this anymore. So make the conversion. Consider a native Florida landscape. Consider stopping the irrigation. Consider stopping the fertilization. It is the single greatest thing that is within the individual control of you as a citizen of Central Florida to undertake by yourself. And as we are approaching the solutions that need to be created for these springs. In new communities, let's use Florida-friendly landscape that avoids this stuff. In new communities, let's avoid installing new irrigation systems that rob that spring of its water. In new communities, let's have bylaws and restrictions that preclude the addition of excess fertilizer rather than demand it. Let's take this individually into our own hands and understand that each of us can be part of the solution and understand that this one thing is more than a symbol. This one thing is the single most destructive item that is facing the springs this year, and I hope you join me in helping to cure our addiction to this green stuff. Thank you very much.